Have you ever indulged in a traditional British pecan pudding? If not, it's high time you did. Imagine a dessert rich in texture and bursting with the sweet, nutty flavour of pecans. This delightful treat is made using a blend of simple ingredients, which include caster sugar, buttered oil, eggs, whole milk, vanilla extract, and of course, chopped pecans. There's a hint of cinnamon for those who fancy a dash of spice. By the end of this video, you'll be an expert in creating this delightful dessert. Before we get into the heart of today's video, we would like to take a moment to wish all our viewers a very happy new year and a fun-filled start to 2025. We hope your year is as sweet and delightful as the recipes we share on this channel. And speaking of sweet things, we're excited to announce that we have a brand new video coming your way this Saturday at 7:30 p.m. We'll be whipping up another delicious treat that you won't want to miss. So mark your calendars, set your reminders, and stay tuned for more delectable recipes. Now let's get back to our British pecan pudding. First things first, gather all your ingredients to ensure a smooth cooking process. We'll need 500 grams of caster sugar for the perfect sweetness and 200 grams of buttered oil or melted butter for a rich, moist texture. Then we'll add 3 large eggs to bind everything together. For the liquid component, we'll use 240 milliliters of whole milk. To this, we'll add a teaspoon of vanilla extract for that delightful aroma and hint of flavour. Now, for the dry ingredients, half a teaspoon of salt to balance out the sweetness, 1 teaspoon of baking powder for that fluffy lift, 200 grams of plain flour as the base of our pudding, and 150 grams of chopped pecans for that lovely crunch. And if you prefer a hint of warmth, feel free to add half a teaspoon of ground cinnamon. With all your ingredients ready, you're set to begin the cooking adventure. Now, the real fun begins. Let's dive into the cooking process. First things first, preheat your oven to a cozy 180 degrees Celsius, or if you're a fan of fan-assisted, knock it down to 160. While you're at it, give your baking dish a good buttering or line it with baking paper if you prefer. Moving on to the mixing in a large bowl, whisk together your buttered oil and sugar until it's as smooth as a jazz tune. Add your eggs, one at a time, giving each a good beating. Now it's time for a splash of vanilla extract and milk. In a separate bowl, sift together your flour, baking powder, salt, and a touch of cinnamon if you're feeling spicy. Gradually fold these dry ingredients into your wet mixture, stirring until just combined. Remember, no over-mixing. We want a light and fluffy pudding, not a workout. Now let's add a bit of crunch to our pudding. Stir in your chopped pecans, ensuring they're evenly distributed throughout the batter. Pour this batter into your prepared baking dish and spread it evenly. If you're feeling fancy, scatter a few extra chopped pecans on top. Finally, pop your dish into the oven and let it bake for about 35 to 40 minutes. Check it with a skewer to ensure it's cooked. If it comes out clean, you've nailed it. And voila, your pudding is ready to be devoured. Before we move on to serving our delicious pudding, let's take a brief detour and dive into a fascinating story involving Ms. Belle Pum and her family. You might be wondering, what does this have to do with our British pecan pudding? Well, the answer is a lot. You see, the Pum family has a deep-rooted love for this pudding, and it's become a bit of a tradition in their household. Let's start with Ms. Belle Pum's sister, Hauve. Hauve is a lively character with 3 delightful children, Pole, Nuddles and Zoe, each with their unique quirks and love for pecan pudding. Zoe, the youngest, has an inexplicable love for the colour green. She insists on having a touch of green in everything she eats, even her pudding. So the family has taken to sprinkling a bit of green food colouring in Zoe's portion. It's a sight to behold. Now, here's a funny story. Once, Hauve got stuck in a chair while trying to reach for the last piece of the pecan pudding. It was a hilarious sight, and the family still chuckles over it during their pudding sessions. But it's not all fun and games. Miss Belle Pum has a bit of a rant about the price of her cheese. She believes it's astronomical and often complains, "I could have bought a small island with the money I spend on cheese." It's a running joke in the family, but it's also a testament to the lengths they'll go to enjoy their beloved pudding. And that's the end of our little story. It's a charming glimpse into the Pum family's love for our British pecan pudding. I hope you enjoyed it. Now let's get back to our kitchen and see how we can serve this delightful dessert. Before we delve into serving our delicious British pecan pudding, let's take a moment to share a bizarre incident that happened in Mrs. Murphy's classroom. Now, Mrs. Murphy is not just any teacher. She is Pole's, Nuddles and Zoe's beloved teacher, known for her creative teaching methods and her unique classroom, which is, believe it or not, a barn. Yes, you heard it right, a barn. This rustic, charming classroom is a haven for creativity, but it's also a breeding ground for mischief. The barn is filled with interesting corners and contraptions, including a man-made waterfall that adds a touch of nature to the learning environment. Now, imagine this scene. It's a sunny day, and the children are in high spirits. Suddenly, one little boy, unable to contain his excitement, or maybe it was the morning's breakfast, vomits into the top of the waterfall. What happens next? Well, it's not a pretty sight. The waterfall turns into a cascading display of regurgitated breakfast, causing a domino effect. Before you know it, the classroom is filled with 1 million people vomiting. As bizarre as it sounds, this incident has become a part of Mrs. Murphy's classroom lore. It's a story told and retold, eliciting laughs and grimaces in equal measures. What a bizarre day that was. But that's life in Mrs. Murphy's barn classroom, filled with learning, laughter, and the occasional vomiting waterfall. Stay tuned for more interesting stories. Now that your delectable pudding is ready, let's talk about some serving suggestions. The beauty of this British pecan pudding is that it pairs delightfully with a range of accompaniments. For a classic British touch, serve it warm with a dollop of custard. If you're after a creamy delight, a swirl of fresh cream would be sublime. And for those hot summer days, a scoop of ice cream melting over the warm pudding is simply divine. Now, if you're looking to take this dessert to the next level of indulgence, consider making the optional toffee sauce. The buttery sweetness of light brown sugar, combined with the richness of unsalted butter and double cream, creates a sauce so luxurious, it's like drizzling liquid gold on your pudding. It's a lavish finish that will have your taste buds dancing with delight. And there you have it, your step-by-step guide to creating an irresistible British pecan pudding. Happy cooking!